It was a Sunday evening, and I arrived home a bit late for me. There was a message on my answering machine, that's what we used back then, from my mother, telling me my father had just passed away. I was in California, and he was in Illinois. I had seen him the previous Christmas. He had been going through chemotherapy then, and I had talked on the phone with him many times in between. For his birthday in August, one of the gifts I had sent him was one of those giant 2-foot-high birthday cards, and he had gotten such a kick out of that he kept it up in his hospital room the entire time. And now he was gone. I began the next day to get the best flight out I could, called into work to let them know I would be taking bereavement leave to return home, and began preparations. By the time I arrived in Illinois, my brother already had helped my mom to make most of the funeral arrangements, so there wasn't much left to do. Within 5 days, we had conducted a wake, a funeral, and a burial, and I was on another plane back to California. There was so much unfinished work I felt I needed to do, but the person I needed to do it with was no longer here. 3 years later, this time, I was awakened at 3:30 a.m. California time by the doctor and my brother regarding my mom, who had been in the ICU for the past 30 days. The doctor was asking me to come. My brother was having a difficult time letting go and insisted on taking extreme measures that would do nothing but prolong her stay in the ICU, which had already set a record for length of stay there, and would not improve the quality of her life. Again, I arose and I made arrangements for travel to St. Louis, where my mother was staying, but this time it was a bit different. I had a chance to connect with her that I didn't have with my father. When I arrived, my brother kept saying that she was improving, that if they just did this procedure or that one, she would get well. But when I spoke to the doctor, I knew this was not possible. And for the next 3 days, I stayed with my brother, talked to him about quality of life, talked to him about what our mother wished, even though she had never written it down. She was connected to tubes to perform every human function. And I knew, we had talked, that she did not wish this. So on the 3rd day, he agreed to let her go. We stayed all day in the hospital that day with her. She was uncommunicative as the tracheotomy that was performed prevented her from speaking. At one point, my brother went to get us some coffee, and I found myself alone with her. And I knew that this was my moment to say what I needed to say. I took her hand, and I said, "Mom, I hope you forgive me for whatever it is you think I've done to hurt you. And I forgive you for whatever I think you've done to hurt me." And I held her hand, and even though her eyes were closed and she couldn't speak, I truly believe she heard me and understood me. My brother returned, and we began the waiting again. But I felt that I had given and received a moment of closure and healing. She passed away later that evening, so we never got to have a conversation again. But there is a sense of peacefulness that I received from my mother's death that I did not receive from my father's. That moment of forgiving, that moment of connection and knowing that we had never been perfect people. We had never said the things we meant to say. We had never had that mother-daughter relationship you see in the movies. And that it was okay. That we had done our best. And that one moment has sustained me more through the years than most of the memories that I have from her. After the deaths of both of my parents, I have periodically lamented not saying the things I wanted to say, not asking those questions I wanted to ask. There have been moments through the years when I've wished I would have asked more about her life before marriage, more about the things she thought about, experienced, achieved before she met my father and began a family. I don't know a lot about her life before then. And I always thought I had time. I had plenty of time to ask. But before I knew it, there wasn't enough time. What I wanted and what I received from that encounter with my mother was a measure of healing. A momentary action that I look back on with gratefulness now. But before had only seen how I didn't aid in the healing I was so desperate for. Our families of origin have a tremendous impact on us, sometimes more than we can ever know. Our family is where we learn about love. We learn about pain. Sometimes we learn about deceit and jealousy. We learn about hurt and kindness. And it becomes a place where sometimes we can never heal from it. In many families, we are not taught how to fight fair, how to disclose our true feelings, how to show healthy love. And if we don't learn it there, where do we learn it? When we go out into the world armed with what we do know, that sometimes does not make the world a better place. We go out into the world armed with skills on how to get what we want, how to hide our true feelings for fear of not getting what we want. Sometimes just living in fear. We're taught to not talk to strangers, to fear those people who are different than we are. Sometimes we are taught to be kind and to get to know others not like us. It depends on the family that raises us in many ways. I've been thinking about something that has concerned me for some time. We talk about family a lot in this country. We say we value it, that family comes first, that family is what's most important in our lives. That when we're on our deathbeds, it's not what we have that will come to mind, but our family that will loom most important. What we did with them, what quality time we spent with them, those memories that we have with them. Yet I wonder how many of us in this country actually put family first. If we did, how would this country be different? I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. My father was very domineering, bullying, and bitter. He was racist and extremely bigoted, seemed to feel inferior to others, and shored up his feelings by belittling others he saw as inferior to him. I knew every nationality by their slur names by the time I was 8 years old, and that was how he referred to others. He saw different than him. He had been disappointed in life, and he took out his disappointment on his family. This was where he could be king. At work, he had to follow orders. He had to do what he considered work lacking in prestige or meaning. He barely made enough to sustain a family of 4. But at home, he could rule. He could boss all of us around, demand that his preferences be kept, make us live the life he wanted us to live, be the people he wanted us to be. And if we rebelled, then that was at our own peril. How could my family's lives be different, I've often thought, if my father had just participated in his own healing? Hindsight is 20/20, and as I look back, I can see so much potential that was wasted. Some merely for the fact that my father was too fearful to change. It was never a possibility that he would ever visit a therapist, reach out to another to talk, or even reach out to his family. He suffered in silence. From what I could glean from my mother, he never spoke to her about his feelings either. I'm sure he was in tremendous pain, but it was a pain that was partly self-inflicted. It was remarked in our family that as he aged, he did mellow a bit, but that joyousness in life that we all strive to reach always seemed to elude him. He never appeared really happy, and I found that sad. We all have a major role in our own happiness and healing. For truly, it is up to us ultimately to achieve that state. When I found Unitarian Universalism, I became enamored of our selected 7 principles and saw that as a path to healing. I saw our principles as a path to changing the world for the better. That if we all just lived our lives that way and spread the word so that others could live this way, we could darn near reach utopia. But then I read a piece by Reverend Tom Shea, a UU minister, where he states, "Nowhere do the principles even hint at what they oppose and what opposes them. They are a description of health, but not a diagnosis of the diseases that prevent health." And here, I was looking at the 7 principles as a cure-all, a path to healing the world, a way for all UUs to fix what was wrong out there. If only we could spread this good news across our nation and the world, we would heal it of all the bigotry and hatred and suffering in the world. We wouldn't need Black Lives Matter movements, the KKK would be abolished, women would be treated as equally as men. There would not be any pain and cruelty in our country. We would all live happily ever after. The 7 principles aren't a cure-all, but they do hold many of the desired outcomes we want to see in the world. But it all starts with the tiny cells of our culture, the family. When we create families that are whole, families that are functional and loving, families that may not even be related by blood, then we have a chance to create that world that the 7 principles embody. We can't change humongous institutions or systemic issues in one fell swoop. We must change those tiny cells that make up those institutions and systems. Us. It feels so arduous and simplistic to say, let's start at the bottom, but real change will not occur until we do. We need a grassroots movement to start from the very bottom of our culture, our families, to reconnect and share those values that we hold dear. I have difficulty speaking with a lot of my extended family members, as a lot of them are conservative and find it difficult to see my side of things. And yet this is exactly where I need to start. I don't think I'm the only person in UU that has relatives on the other side. But how many of us just avoid those conversations for fear of confrontation? Avoid certain subjects because we don't know how to approach them in a healthy way. That's what we need to figure out. We need to create those conversations, train each other if we have to help others see the good that we see in the world. Practice those discussions with others so that you can say what you need to say when someone approaches you and says, "But all lives matter." When they don't understand or recognize the systemic oppression that is built into our culture. We have to be courageous in those moments. Be compassionate in those moments. See the hurt. I didn't always see the hurt in my father. And if I would have, maybe I could have achieved those discussions that I wanted to. Maybe I would have been more compassionate, more kind, more loving. With my mom, I would have had those conversations I am really missing years later that can never now occur. I was afforded a moment to take some healing before she passed away, and I wasn't with my father. I can see the difference in how I view our relationship from that one opportune moment. Don't wait to heal. Take those moments that are afforded us. Sometimes they only occur once in a lifetime. Take those moments and seek healing. There is a tremendous amount of hurt and pain and evil in the world today. We have leaders out in the world, within our political process, our educational system, our corporate structure, that are promulgating hatred and bigotry and deceit instead of kindness and compassion and love. And it seems no one is stopping them. We can. We can, simply by teaching those around us what we know to be true. That the democratic process works. That the inherent worth and dignity of each person is paramount. That we are all a part of the interconnected web of all existence. That justice, equity, and compassion will indeed make the world a better place. As Reverend Erica Hewitt said in the reading earlier, healing begins when we examine what's in pain, wonder how it occurred, and allow it to teach us. There are no lack of opportunities for healing in this world today. There are opportunities for us all to heal. Like the elephant in the story for all ages, our surroundings are an integral part of us. The birds, the trees, the wind, and the earth are all here to help us heal. We are but a tiny cell in this cog of life. Let us be those tiny cells of healing that will spread out into the sea of humanity that we call Earth. Let's start where we can and do what we can. Let the pain teach us. Let this world that seems to be unbearable sometimes teach us how to be better. How to heal those broken wings we have so that we can fly again. Our families are the foundation of our culture, the foundation that we can build on to change those things that we can change in this world, to bring hope and caring and love back into the spoken and unspoken values we have. Whether we have come from a healthy family or a dysfunctional one, there is work to do. Don't wait to heal. Seek out the healing and spread that healing to fill the world with loving kindness. See the pain. Let the pain teach us. Don't wait to heal. May it be so. Please rise in body or spirit to sing our closing hymn and the seal hymnal.